Hello again, everyone. It is Kevin Adkisson, curator with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research, coming to you live at 5 o'clock with another virtual tour here on Facebook Live. And today we are lighting up the story of Cranbrook House's lighting. And I'll repeat this at the end of the tour as people gather in for our virtual event today. But on Sunday, I led a very special holiday tour here of Cranbrook House. It was about 75 minutes long, and I know many of you were able to join us. If you missed that holiday tour, by tomorrow or Friday, it's going to be on the center's webpage, and we are still selling tickets because it is a fundraiser. And so if you email center.cranbrook.edu, then we can email you the link and we can send you that virtual holiday tour. Now, my colleague Leslie, the Associate Registrar, and I have spent the past month preparing Cranbrook House, and then of course for 75 minutes on Sunday, we moved every single thing in the house, and now it's taken us 3 days to move everything back, and we still have 2 more days to go. But one part of Sunday's tour that got a lot of interest and a lot of questions were things that I pointed out about the lighting here in Cranbrook House. And so I thought that I would use today's tour to discuss the Edward F. Caldwell and Company, who were the designers of the Cranbrook House lighting, and talk a little bit about how the company expanded from being one of America's foremost lighting designers to being a whole sort of decorator's warehouse. And so I know that if you were on the tour with us on Sunday, I reset this room back to its 1915 appearance. Sadly, it has gone back to its reception hall appearance, but we'll get started with today's Live at 5 tour, just looking at the hanging fixtures here in the reception hall. And if you had visited the booths in 1908, they moved in right in time for the 21st wedding anniversary in 1908, but these electric lights were not here, partly because they were not ready yet. They weren't made in Manhattan and they hadn't been completed yet. But also, even if they had been installed, there was no electricity here at Cranbrook in 1908. Now, for a house like this, you're at a really interesting moment in history because 1908, if we were in Manhattan, you would have an all-electric apartment or an all-electric townhouse. If you were in, say, Richmond or Washington, D.C., or maybe you have gas lighting, maybe you have electric. If you're in Detroit, what is Detroit known for? Industry, modernity. And so certainly had the Booths decided to build a new city home, they could have built an all-electric house in Detroit and had it wired by 1908. But a country house is a little bit different. And so Mr. Booth it was recommended to him that he plumb the house for gas lighting. But he said, no, gas lighting is going to go away. I want an all-electric house, and if I have to wait on the electricity, then I'll wait. And so that is what he had to do while they were running the power lines from Highland Park, which was the closest Edison Electric substation, all the way up the old Saginaw Trail, what we call Woodward Avenue. And so in January of 1909, these fixtures finally had electric power. They arrived on December 1st, 1908, but it took another month and a half before they actually got electricity. Now, all of the hanging light fixtures in the house that are original to either the 1908 portion or 1918 edition, the 1919 wing does not have original light fixtures that you ever see on tour. There's some in some offices. But they're all made by the Caldwell Company. And that includes many of the lamps. And so who were the Caldwell and Company? Well, it was really a premier design and manufacturer of electric lighting. And Edward F. Caldwell himself was born in 1851. He passed away in 1914. And he established a legacy as being one of the premier designers of electric light, distinct from gas lighting or candle or oil lighting. So Caldwell himself was a portrait painter from Waterville, New York, and he became active in New York City in the 1880s. And his first jobs were with gas lighting companies designing light fixtures, but he was part of this whole artistic circle in New York that included people like the New Jersey-based inventor Thomas Edison. And so Caldwell made a name for himself at his first company, which was Archer and Pancoast. He made a name for himself as being a designer of electric light. And he begins to realize that this is the way of the future, and that instead of being sort of doing multiple light fixtures beautifully, what if he started a company that just did electric light? And so that is how Caldwell ends up with the commission in the 1890s to electrify the White House, with Tiffany designing many of the light fixtures. And it's really how he becomes the juggernaut of electric light in sort of 1900 to 1920. His partner was von Lossberg, who was a Russian immigrant designer. So Caldwell was, I believe, Germanic, a German immigrant, or second-generation German immigrant, and then Victor von Lossberg, who was a Russian immigrant working in Manhattan. And they established their studio just doing electric light fixtures. And you end up with an interesting conundrum with electric light, because you can make something like this Caldwell fixture over my shoulder that essentially, that could be a candle, that could be an oil lamp, it could be a gas light underneath the mica shade. But you also have the power of the light bulb, and so it is entirely different from having a flame and covering a flame. And so what does Caldwell do? Well, he invents these very strange light fixtures that almost look like they have these sort of fishnet over the light bulbs, and those are clipped onto the light bulb. Those are the original covers with modern textiles. And so around this time, sort of 1905 to 1915, you end up with these very experimental light forms, because why make it look like a chandelier with candles in it if, for the first time in human history, there's no open flame? And so I think these are actually much more interesting as far as sort of Booth's patronage and as far as the Caldwell Company than some of the sconces, which are much more traditional and sort of very similar to what he had been doing before. And he is from Waterville, New York, portrait painter from Waterville. And I'm getting most of this information from the Smithsonian Cooper Hewitt Museum in New York, where Caldwell has some 50,000 pages of his archives. And there's a really nice electronic exhibit about Caldwell on the Cooper Hewitt's website. So this is another example where it really doesn't look like any historic form. It doesn't look sort of Greek revival, doesn't look Roman revival. It doesn't even look sort of Victorian eclectic. It's a whole new thing where electric light is the new potential, and so we will have this new form. And here you can, maybe I'll turn off one of them and see if we can get a view. Do you see how it's actually a beaded lampshade that's around the light bulb? And so changing these light bulbs, you actually screw off the beaded lampshade, and then you screw out the bulb, and then you have to carefully sort of pop off this cover, and then it pops directly back on the light bulb. And this is a nickel-plated light fixture here. And of course, all of the sconces are, again, by Caldwell and Company, and that's true on all three levels of the house. Many of them have been rewired by Cranbrook electricians over time, but I love these two because they are original, and I think they show us the cleverness of the Caldwell Company, because how do you turn this on? Where's the switch? It's actually the base of the entire lamp turns and cuts on. And I think for generations that has been unclear, and so that is why Cranbrook has sadly put in switches on most of these to make it easier for people. But of course, the Booths had a maid who would have known how to turn it on. I will say, by putting two light bulbs on one switch, it has reduced the 270 some odd individual pulls and switches on the first floor by, what, 3 switches? Because you get 2 with 1. So I mentioned that Caldwell himself dies in 1914. At that point, Victor von Lossberg takes over the firm, and he'll live until 1942. They were the same age, so Caldwell died pretty young. And when von Lossberg takes over the firm, we get very different things coming out of the Caldwell Company. Now remember, they are business partners. They establish the firm together. So they start day one with von Lossberg and with Caldwell. But von Lossberg was, if Caldwell himself was really the brains behind the electricity, he was also the brains behind the sort of business side of the company. It was von Lossberg who was in charge of aesthetics. And so what happens if you lose your business partner and your technical know-how, but you keep the creative side? Well, things just get even more flamboyant and creative. And so the work of Caldwell and Company after Caldwell's death really becomes much more varied. And so you end up with leather-bound notebooks. And this was a set of 2 that George Booth used as his day book. And so it's a brass-fronted, leather-bound notebook. And he would keep his loose leaf papers in here and then transfer them to other binders or other places. All of the papers themselves are now at Cranbrook Archives. And then you see all the beautiful tooled metalwork along the cover of this pretty incredible album. Now, Caldwell and Company under von Lossberg also began making tooled leather desk sets. And so this is a piece from Caldwell Company, this leather box. And then they also made desk accessories. So this little jade piece on a brass base, which was here in Booth's office, is also Caldwell and Company. And even this box, which I love for its sort of Pompeian styling, very historic. So if around 1900 Caldwell was doing things that were, if not ahistoric, they were quite inventive. By the 19-teens, 1920s, and 30s, Caldwell and Company is where you go if you want that sort of direct, archaeologically correct Pompeian style box. And this wonderful polished brass our polished bronze, I'm not sure which one it is you have the brown part is the unpolished or antiqued metal, and then the high polish along the angels. And it's actually a 3-part mold. So each of the sides is identical around, and then you have 3 legs that are dividing the 3 sides. And then along the lid, you have more characters who are in the orchard or in the vineyard holding the grapes. And then, of course, Caldwell continues as a lighting designer. And so this lamp is from the Caldwell Company. And you can see it has down here different figures, floral motifs. You know, Tiffany and Company was doing very similar work at the same time. Tiffany Studios, which were the artistic arm of Tiffany and Company, was of course doing decorative stained glass. Now, Mr. Booth did have some Tiffany that sadly was taken out of Cranbrook House, not by kind people, and so we don't have those that Tiffany vase any longer. But I think you do see a sort of difference in Caldwell in the scale of production. Caldwell is just a much bigger company. And also, and this is where I get my curatorial hat on, I think Caldwell is a perhaps less creative company than Tiffany was, though they're certainly aware of all of the trends of Tiffany. And so if you want a Tiffany style lamp, well, Caldwell can make you one. And it does have these wonderful little faces around the edge. And then I love on top of it, it has this little seated figure, which reminds me quite a bit of the Thornley doorknob. If you've ever had the pleasure of visiting Thornley, you know that there's another sort of metallic figure. Now, also from Caldwell and Company. So those are just some of the booth desk material. If you have any questions, be sure to type them in and I'll try and scroll through. My sweatshirt is the Blue Hens for the Delaware Blue Hens. Of course, I am a graduate of the University of Delaware with my master's degree. I actually was able to Zoom today with a current University of Delaware student who's writing a thesis on a book that I had written a term paper on. So Delaware has one of the foremost programs in American furniture history, which is where I got my master's. So this is another piece by von Lossberg himself. So just like Tiffany or other sort of big decorator firms, you could order from the company, and that's probably something like the sconce. You know, Mr. Booth says, I need 8 sconces for my dining room. Here are 8 sconces. Who knows if Caldwell or Lossberg actually worked on these designs because they're very similar to the sort of general output of the company. Very different is this little piece where we see Lossberg's training in the old world in Russia in cloisonné, which is melted glass placed into a base metal, here in brass, sometimes in silver. And so it's in the style of a medieval music cover. So what you might see in an old monastery protecting the sheet music. Here it has been framed by Mr. Booth. He would have bought it unframed. He would have bought it again as a music cover. And then, of course, the exquisite beauty and this sort of 13th century ecclesiastical scene. I think Mr. Booth correctly views it not as a cover, but as a piece of art in and of itself. And so this is also from the Caldwell Company. Now, I've pulled out, or left out rather, just a couple of other things. And if you're enjoying today's tour of just the Caldwell Company pieces, I do encourage you to go back and watch our holiday tour. That was on Sunday. That tour is a fundraiser, so there's a $20 ticket price to it. But I would encourage you to email us at center.cranbrook.edu. And if you're able to, support us by attending some of our ticketed events. But also, I think that the tour we led on Sunday was pretty great, if I do say so myself. I think it was a lot of fun and told a lot of family stories here at Cranbrook House. Now, this is another example of Caldwell Company after Caldwell. And so they really become a sort of full decorator firm. And so this table is Caldwell and Company, made out of oak in the style of sort of, medieval England. And that, of course, was beloved by the arts and crafts practitioners of both Europe and America, this idea that everything after the Renaissance is a terrible development, and so all of our furniture should be sort of pre-Renaissance. And so this is a table that was produced by the Caldwell Company. The light here is by Oscar Bach, who would have also been in the West Teens on Manhattan. So I think Caldwell and Company was, West 15th Street, and Bach was West 17th Street. Another lamp by Caldwell and Company. And then I'm going to save these standing lamps are going to be the last thing we look at on today's Live at 5, because I think that they might be the most interesting Caldwell pieces in the house. But you see that Caldwell doesn't just work in brass and iron. Here we see Caldwell working in Monel metal, which that's a capital M Monel. It is a trademarked alloy, a precursor to stainless steel. It's essentially stainless steel with nickel in it. And so this is a metal that's invented in the 20th century, copyrighted, trademarked, given a proper name. So capital M Monel metal light fixtures in this sort of Spanish or North African style here on the sunset porch from the Caldwell Company. And then a little bit behind the scenes, how a sausage gets made as we take apart some of our pieces from the holiday tour. These phenomenal chandeliers from the Caldwell Company. And so these two coordinating pieces, they're not identical matches. are part of the 1918 addition to the house. And I think this is pretty classic Caldwell and Company. It's wrought iron metalwork, custom for a custom room, fine metalwork for a fine home. And these pieces were used in advertising by Caldwell and Company, leading some people to think that, oh, were these from the catalog? In fact, the catalog for Caldwell and Company would just use existing products. So it's not like a Sears catalog where you could order these pieces. Most things were custom work, and so when they would send out their mailers, they were sending out photographs of custom pieces to show you the style that they could achieve. And they worked sort of from French, Italian, English, historic styles, archaeological styles. They could do really anything. And they worked particularly with the great architects of the era, like Stanford White, who was a close friend with Edward Caldwell. And so they did everything from St. Patrick's Cathedral to the J.P. Morgan's residence to the Harvard Club, the New York Public Library, the University Club, Rinalda House, the Waldorf Astoria, all the way to Radio City Music Hall are all Caldwell fixtures. And of course, Radio City Music Hall is not historic in style, but is Art Deco. And that actually points out one of the interesting developments of the company is that even here at Cranbrook, Saarinen House, all of those beautiful light fixtures designed by Eliel Saarinen are Caldwell and Company. And even the lamps that Eero Saarinen designs in the 30s are made by Caldwell and Company. So they really could work across style. Tom, your question about Caldwell lamps having any trademarks, I'm not sure. I have not seen any on any of the pieces that I've looked at. What is useful about identifying a Caldwell product is that they have these 50,000 images of their work on the Smithsonian's website. And so just this afternoon, Leslie Mayo was able to find that little vase on George Booth's desk in the Smithsonian records, which we had not previously made the connection. So if you think something's Caldwell, I'm not sure it's always marked, but you should be able to find it on the digital records. Even these andirons are Caldwell and Company. These are, the story is that George Booth designed these, though I'm not sure, I have not personally investigated that. And because they come from Caldwell, I imagine they were designed by Caldwell along with the light fixtures as part of the same commission for the metalwork of this room. The reason George Booth might have designed them is that he did design many of the other andirons here at Cranbrook House, but these are such sort of perfect matches to the light fixtures. I would have to do a little bit more research to figure out exactly who was doing the design of the Caldwell pieces here. And of course, the fireplace tools also come from Caldwell Company. Now, I want to point out these sconces around the room, because these are also Caldwell Company, and you have the beautiful iron work. And so this is wrought iron, which means that it starts with an iron bar and it's heated up, and then it's taken onto the anvil and it's hammered out into the scroll. And so here you can see where the iron bar has been split and then folded out. So all of this would have been part of the heating, taking off hammering, heating, taking off hammering in order to get these little flourishes. And one little detail here is there is a lovely rosette down below. And so you see how this is a screw head that's actually attaching it to the wall. And then this rosette here, which looks perfectly normal, boom. It's actually an electric light fixture. And so remember what I said about Caldwell being at the forefront of electric lighting design? Well, why would you need a plug there but to find your book? And so this is one of two flashlights that were made for the library by Caldwell and Company. And so George Booth or Ellen could come down, or the kids, and they could look for the next great book they were going to read by simply plugging their Caldwell flashlight into the sconce. And so this I again pulled out for Sunday's tour, ended up not even showing it on the tour, which is part of the reason why I wanted to talk more about Caldwell today at Live at 5. Because those of you who joined the tour know that it was just 75 minutes, and sometimes Live at 5 can go 75 minutes just on one topic. So, and you can see how the edge of the flashlight coordinates perfectly with the sconce. And then it actually hangs, and so it can go on any of the sconces, and it hangs there, and then we'll cut it off. So I said that I would end the talk by looking at my favorite Caldwell Company light fixtures. Again, excuse the mess as we put everything back from Sunday's tour, including the polar bear rug that was here from about 1909 to 1925 until our sort of post-Teddy Roosevelt decorating trends eventually changed, and the tiger and the grizzly bear and the polar bear rug all got put into storage, but I brought it out for this special tour. So the greatest works of Caldwell here at Cranbrook, I think, though that's of course debatable, are these magnificent lamps. And these are designed by Thomas Hastings in 1914. You may know Thomas Hastings from the architecture firm of Carrere and Hastings. And so Carrere and Hastings are exact contemporaries to McKim, and White or Warren and Wetmore. I'm sure Carrere and Hastings did bank buildings here in Detroit. Maybe someone watching knows the Detroit Carrere and Hastings buildings. I know them from designing the Bicentennial buildings, Yale's major concert hall and dining room. They did the University Club. They did the Yacht Club in Manhattan. So they're sort of high society architects who did homes in Newport, Rhode Island, in New York, in Boston, sort of mansions all across the eastern seaboard. And this is designed by Thomas Hastings, so one half of the firm. And why in the world would Thomas Hastings be designing a lamp for Caldwell Company? Well, because Carrere and Hastings, like all of the great neoclassical traditional architecture firms, when they designed for a client, they designed everything. So why, Kevin, are we looking at a Thomas Hastings designed lamp in a house by Albert Kahn? Well, Thomas Hastings, in fact, designed this piece not for Cranbrook House, but for Henry Frick in the Frick Mansion. So Frick was a Pittsburgh industrialist. He had a beautiful mansion in Pittsburgh that's now open for tour. But in 1912, he decided to move to Manhattan, and so Frick commissioned Carrere and Hastings to build a quite grand home and garden on Fifth Avenue on the Upper East Side, part of moving the wealth of Manhattan up Fifth Avenue along Central Park. And Thomas Hastings designed these light fixtures as part of the Frick Mansion. So why in the world did they ever leave? Well, Mr. Frick, the story goes, and this is another really great story that I tell on tours all the time and that I get from generations of tour scripts, but I kind of feel like I need to one day, you'll see this on the blog, because I feel like I need to research and get back to the original documents of the story, because usually the truth is as interesting as the story that continues. But the tale goes that Mr. Frick moves into his Manhattan house and he looks at these light fixtures, which were designed for the foyer, and he says about both the light fixtures and a matching gate, the ladies are going to rip their petticoats here on the base of these light fixtures, and he rejects them. And so the story continues that Caldwell, who has really made a tour de force of American wrought iron, is pretty dejected because, of course, the client is always right. So Frick doesn't pay for these. He doesn't accept them. They go back to Caldwell Company. And what does Caldwell do? Well, he writes to one of his great patrons. And so was George Booth Caldwell's greatest patron, most famous patron? No. But was George Booth probably one of the most interested in metalwork and ironwork, and certainly one of the most dedicated to this idea of handcrafted? light fixtures? Absolutely. And so Caldwell might have had a harder time convincing J.P. Morgan, oh, you need these lamps that Frick rejected. But Caldwell could absolutely tell George Booth, this is the best thing we've ever done. It's extraordinarily beautiful, and I can think of no client who could appreciate these lamps more than you. And so George Booth, apparently sight unseen, says, absolutely, I need those lamps. Send them on to Detroit. And so they came with a matching set of gates, and I'm not sure where the gates were circa 1915 to 1919, but at that point, George Booth gives them to the Detroit Institute of Arts. They were down at the old Detroit Art Museum on Jefferson Avenue, and then they moved into the new building in 1927 on Woodward. And so the next time you're at the DIA and you go into the Rivera Court, the Wisteria Gates by Thomas Hastings and created by Caldwell and Company, gift of George G. Booth, those are the matching Frick gates that go with these lamps. And so the next time you're looking at the wisteria gates, you will see that, yes, there is wisteria on the lamps, and even these painted birds make an appearance on the gate. And so it was part of a whole sort of vestibule suite of furniture that led between whatever 52nd Street, whatever street is the cross street. So from the front door, from the carriage into the foyer, there's a little vestibule that these lamps and that gate down at the Detroit Institute of Art were meant for. And what's hard if you're not a metalsmith, what you might not appreciate so much about these pieces is that if this was silver or very soft metal, this would be very easy to do. You have your hammers and you simply hammer this around, and silver is just going to work almost like butter. It's such a soft metal. You know, any of your jewelry, gold or silver jewelry, gets deformed the longer you wear it and starts to, squish down. Iron doesn't do that at all. Iron is not going to move. It is not happy. The very structure, the very chemical structure of the iron doesn't want to do this. And so you have to work it, get it hot, pull it out of the heat while it's still white hot, hammer it once, heat it up again, and every time you're heating it, it's getting annealed. And so it's getting harder and harder to work until eventually it just wants to break. And so for the skilled craftsmen of the Caldwell and Company to be able to work iron into these little leaf shapes is really, this is why George Booth would have fallen in love with these pieces, because it is a testament to the extraordinary skill of the Caldwell and Company team. So I don't know if anyone has any last questions, as we have enjoyed our little study today of Caldwell and Company at Cranbrook House. It might not be a company that you know off the top of your head, but it's one that if you tour historic houses, you absolutely have seen their work, because when you go to the Smithsonian website and you just scroll through their list of projects, it's everything. They were working on projects all across the country, even these little lamps in the library, which have these sort of natural dye decorations. These are Caldwell Company. So I'll be back next week on December 23rd. I'll try and find someplace warm and someplace special for a little Christmas Eve tour next week. And then I'm not going anywhere, so we might have a tour between then and New Year's. We might not. We'll see. If you have any other questions, you can always leave them in the comments. And then if I find answers, I will leave those answers in the comments as well. I know Kingswood and Christchurch Cranbrook are both high on our list of audience requests of places to go for Live at 5. If you have other requests, particularly indoors on days like today where it is still snowing out there, just let me know. Either send me an email or a message. And today's tour was just looking at Caldwell here in Cranbrook House. But if you want to learn more about Cranbrook House, particularly how the Booth family spent their holidays here at Cranbrook House, I encourage you to email us at center@cranbrook.edu and buy a ticket to our Home for the Holidays tour. It was live last Sunday, but it's going to be on our pay-protected little YouTube video. And so it would be great if you can support the center here at the end of the year by purchasing the $20 ticket. and then we're happy to share with you that holiday tour that tells you a lot more stories about Cranbrook House. Of course, in 75 minutes, we did the whole first floor, so it's going to be a little bit less detailed than we learned about Mr. Caldwell today. Oh, the last little tidbit that I love about Edward Caldwell was that he was a great businessman, and he knew that the best way to sort of make a name for himself beyond just these wealthy clients with custom pieces was if he could be better known, if it wasn't just the upper class who had Caldwell light fixtures, but the upper middle class or even the middle class. And so was it possible for Caldwell to essentially create mass market light fixtures and pieces? And he did achieve that. So it is kind of amazing because, of course, Tiffany becomes a household name because they really figure out mass market. And so Tiffany has, as it does today, multiple tiers of what you can buy at Tiffany Somerset versus what you can buy from the third floor custom jewel department on the Fifth Avenue. Caldwell and Company had something similar. So I don't know if they did it here with Cranbrook House, but what becomes quite common was that if Caldwell got a commission from George Booth here in the countryside of Detroit, well, then he would also go to Hudson's and he would say, can I have 3 of your windows? And can I put in things like the desk pad and the leather bookcase? Can I put in lamps in the windows of Hudson's with the big sign that says Caldwell and Company, maybe a cardboard cutout of a sort of angelic figure with fabric draped over her? And he would do these sort of mass market introductions of his company in cities all across the country. So you would see Caldwell and Company small gifts in department stores in St. Louis, Kansas City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, everywhere that he was going to build train station lighting or mansion chandeliers. He would then set up shop in these department stores in order to get more clients. So I love an artisan who, isn't afraid to work up into this sort of mass appeal and to share their skill with all different sort of levels of clients. Thanks so much for coming on a tour here. Another Live at 5 with Kevin Adkisson. I'm the Associate Curator with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research, and I will see you next Wednesday here on Facebook Live at 5. See you then, everyone.